Story 1. I woke up to a stranger in my apartment. He says he lives here. I'm always so tired after coming home. The harsh glare of the office light still buzzes behind my eyes, even here in the blessed dimness of the stairwell. I climb 3 flights, each step feeling like I'm dragging an anchor tied to my ankle. My key finds the lock on apartment 3B, my lock. The deadbolt clicks open. I push the door in, breathing in the faint, familiar ghost of last night's cheap instant noodles and the dusty warmth trapped inside. I don't even make it to the bedroom. The sagging, familiar comfort of my old couch in the living room calls out. I sink into it, the springs groaning their usual complaint under my weight. The fabric smells faintly of dust and me as sleep drags me under. A few hours later, I jolt awake, heart hammering, as a hand grabs my shoulder and shakes me hard. Hey! Ichiwai, someone shouts. I snap awake, gasping, disoriented. Silver moonlight cuts the room into sharp shapes and deep shadows. A man leans over me, his face pale and damp with sweat in the gloom. His eyes are wide, wild circles catching the weak light. Get up. What are you doing in my apartment? His voice is rough, slicing straight through whatever dream I was trapped in. Fear shoots through me. I push myself upright, heart racing. You're what? I blink fast, trying to steady my vision. No. No, this is my apartment. This is 3B. I live here. The man steps back, just enough to half merge with the darkness by the doorway. Are you out of your mind? I live in 3B. What are you doing here? I don't know who you are, I say, trying to sound calm, anything but scared. But you need to leave before I call someone. Oh, I need to leave. Really? You show up in my place and now you're threatening me? I run a hand through my hair, eyes darting to the hallway. Could I shove him out and lock the door? Could I grab my phone, where is my phone? And call for help? I take a small step toward him, hands half raised. Look, I don't know what's going on. Maybe you got the wrong floor or maybe you're just confused, but this is my apartment, okay? You don't live here. He stares at me. Then, with sudden, sharp movements, he points toward the kitchenette. Oh yeah? Then tell me that's your owl mug. I follow his finger. A chipped blue owl mug sits on the coffee table like a trap. I blink. That. I don't know. That's not mine. You're right, it's not, he snaps. That's my mug. And where's my sailboat painting? I had it right there. He jabs a finger at the wall above the TV. Are you trying to steal my stuff? I turn. My faded Swiss Alps poster is gone. In its place is a bright, tacky print of a sailboat on unreal blue water. Wait. I had a poster there. Mountains. Swiss Alps. I swear it was there. The man just stares, chest heaving. I hold up my hands like I'm calming a stray dog. Okay. Maybe I messed up. My voice trembles, nearly lost in the silence. Maybe I got the wrong door. I didn't mean to, I'm sorry. Really sorry. I step back, knees shaky. I'll go, alright? I'll just grab my stuff and go. But something makes me pause. I glance back at the coffee table, at that blue owl mug. It's not just unfamiliar. It's wrong. The eyes aren't painted right, they're uneven. One stares straight ahead. The other tilts sideways, like it's watching the hallway behind me. The man hasn't moved. His face shifts, less angry now. More uneasy. His eyes dart from the wall to the table to me. I don't remember this table being glass, he says, his voice lower now. I look down. The table's wood. It's always been wood. What are you talking about? I ask, but my voice is too soft to sound strong. No, it was glass, he mutters. Round. Had a chip on the edge from when I dropped some takeout. This one's wood. square. And that lamp. He turns slowly. That's not my lamp. Something creaks in the bedroom. Neither of us moves. I think, he says, breath fogging lightly in the suddenly cold air, I think this isn't your apartment. Or mine. The tension is gone, replaced by a mirror of my own cold fear. Keys, he whispers, digging into his pocket with shaking fingers. He pulls out a keyring. We need to get out of here. We'll figure out what's happening outside. My own keys are cold, heavy lumps in my hand. We don't say another word. The silence is like a thick blanket, heavy with the smell of something old and the feeling of being watched by the shadows clinging to the walls. The hallway to the door feels longer than it should be. I take a step, and the carpet squishes faintly under my foot. I glance down. The floor looks the same, beige, ugly, a little stained. But now I don't trust it. Behind us, the bedroom door creaks again, only this time it doesn't stop. It opens slowly, with a hush-like breath sliding through teeth. He doesn't turn. Neither do I. Don't look back, he whispers. His voice trembles. Just walk. We move, inching forward. Every object in the living room seems slightly off. The couch leans toward the wall, cushions dented like something heavy just stood up. The bookshelf is missing a shelf. My hand tightens around my keys. They rattle too loudly, like they're calling attention to us. Like they want something else to hear. We're almost there, I murmur, not sure who I'm trying to reassure, him or myself. The front door is 10 feet away. 8. A soft knock echoes from inside the bedroom. The man beside me flinches. I don't dare look. The air drops even colder. My breath hangs in front of my face, then drifts backward, against everything that should be possible. I swallow hard. This place, this thing, it's copying us. Badly. The front door looms closer, but the handle looks off. Longer than I remember. He reaches the door first, his hand trembling as he tries to fit his key into the deadbolt. It scrapes uselessly against the plate. It won't fit. His voice cracks with fear. It should just open from the inside. I whisper back, my hand closing over the cold knob. I twist. It turns easily. Thank goodness. With a surge of hope, I yank the door open. We stumble out together into the hallway, gasping in lungfuls of still air. It tastes thick with dust and that same damp, heavy smell. The hallway light fixture is broken, glass shards glittering dully on the floor. Weak gray light from early dawn filters through a grimy window at the far end, showing us a scene that freezes us in place. The hallway is a ruin. Wallpaper hangs in long, rotting strips, exposing cracked plaster underneath. The carpet is threadbare, stained with dark marks you can't quite name, and pulled up in spots to reveal warped floorboards. Doors to other apartments hang crooked on broken hinges, showing glimpses of darkness inside. Cobwebs thick as gauze drape the corners and ceiling. The air is freezing, heavy with the smell of old dampness, mildew, and years of neglect. Utter, absolute desolation. This, the man beside me whispers, his voice cracking. This building, it's condemned. Look. He points a shaking finger toward a large, official notice nailed crookedly to the wall opposite my door, our door. Apartment 3B. The paper is faded and stained with water, but the bold red letters are clear as day, condemned. Structurally unsafe. Entry prohibited. My blood feels like ice. We both slowly turn to look back at the door we just stepped through. Apartment 3B. The wood is warped, the paint peeling and blistered. A thick layer of grime coats the surface, like old moss. The number, 3B, is barely visible, the brass digits green with age. The keyhole looks rusted shut. It seems like it hasn't been opened in years. The man lifts his hand slowly, like holding the key drains the strength from him. I look down at mine. Both keys are identical. Both for 3B. Both suddenly useless against the decayed reality in front of us, yet they worked moments ago. He meets my eyes. Our keys hang loose in our hands. The only sound is our pounding hearts and the heavy silence. And then the shadows behind the door shift. At first, I almost miss it, just a flicker of movement in the dark. A blot of black darker than the shadows around it. But then it pushes forward, slow and deliberate. It isn't a person. Not exactly. The shape doesn't hold together right. Limbs bend where they shouldn't, joints stick out at strange angles. Where a face should be, there's only a hollowed-out shape, like a mask left too close to heat. And the worst part? The hallway shouldn't be big enough for it. The ceiling should scrape its head. The walls should press against its shoulders. But it keeps coming anyway, bending the space around it like the apartment is folding for it. The shape tilts its head. My ribs squeeze tight, breath caught like a trapped thing in my chest. The man beside me makes a sound, not quite a whimper, maybe a half-formed prayer. A sharp crack splits the silence. The doorframe splinters, just a hairline fracture, but it sounds like a thunderclap in the still air. We run. Stairs blur beneath our feet. We don't stop until concrete turns to asphalt, until the sky leaks into dawn. Our eyes meet, a silent question between us, like a scream that can't find its voice. My stomach flips as reality tries to rearrange itself in my mind. This isn't right. The street signs are unfamiliar. The buildings were strange colors. And that horrible, clawing thought. I don't live in an apartment. I own a house. A blue colonial with hydrangeas out front. A mailbox with my name and Olivia's painted on the side. A garage where my daughter's bike leans against the wall. Cold sweat runs down my spine. How did we get inside that place? Who let us in? But the most chilling question hangs between us, unspoken. What did we just escape from? Story 2. I met my new girlfriend at my former wife's grave. Now I hate myself and don't know what I should do. This all started because I offered my wife's tombstone a tuna sandwich. That probably sounds insane, so here's the backstory. For our first date, Emma and I had a picnic on the beach. I'd asked if she liked tuna, she said, sure, so I made sandwiches. We picnicked a lot during our first year together and tuna was on the menu half the time. For our first anniversary, we went back to that beach spot again, but as I handed Emma her sandwich, she said, I've got to tell you something. Tuna. It's disgusting. I'd honestly rather eat it after it's gone through my digestive system. No offense. She'd assumed she'd like the taste before our date, but the second she took that first bite she wanted to bleach her tongue. The problem was when she saw all the love and care I'd put into the crusts and dill pickles, she felt too guilty to spit it out. I just laughed. And for all future picnics, I always jokingly offered her the first bite of my tuna sandwich. Last year, Emma passed away on Valentine's Day. She was speeding home from work because I'd cooked a romantic dinner. For 3 months I barely climbed out of bed except to use the bathroom and eat, until one sunny afternoon when I randomly packed a picnic basket and jumped in the car. Her grave sits at the top of a grassy knoll in the shade of an elm tree. There, I laid out a red blanket and food. Without thinking, I offered her headstone a bite of my tuna sandwich, and once I realized what I'd done, I laughed for the first time since the accident. So anytime the weather was decent, I went back. These picnic dates really brightened my mood, and before long I got on a first-name basis with Harry the groundskeeper. In August, as I unfurled the blanket, a gust of wind ripped it from my hands and blew it right across the face of a lady standing down the hill. I raced over as she clumsily tried freeing herself, then wrestled the blanket back. The woman underneath had real Disney princess energy, all blue eyes and curly black hair. Her name was Ruth. She was visiting her late husband, Christian Mary, whose name stuck in my head because my first thought was, Merry Christmas. From then on, when I visited Emma's grave, sometimes I spotted Ruth at that same spot. We occasionally gave each other friendly waves. Then, one afternoon, She strolled along the path as I started packing up. "Walk you to the gate?" she asked. "Sure." On the way past, she touched Emma's gravestone once and smiled at me. "So what's with the sandwiches? Sometimes I see you and it's like you're showing off what you ate to the tombstone." When I explained the meaning behind the ritual, she said, "That's so sweet. Christian loved tuna too." She faced me straight on, locked her eyes on mine, and said, "Do you ever think grief is heavenly?" "Sure." Down the hill, there was a sharp gust of wind, and Ruth did a pretend dive for cover as if another blanket might attack. I burst out laughing. Then I asked her to coffee. That night, the barbs of grief stung really badly. What kind of awful person asks for another woman's number within earshot of his wife's grave? My friends promised I hadn't broken any rules, and even Harry encouraged me to put myself out there. "That pretty lady's been around here for years. You two would be good together." And so, over a series of coffee dates, I poured my grief into Ruth. "I feel exactly the same," she said. "I thought I was broken too when I lost, Christian." She rarely talked about her late husband, and when she did, she kept the details vague. Some pain is just too raw to share, I figured. The first night we spent together happened by accident, a dinner date that ran long. In the morning, after I kissed her goodbye, I leaned my back against the door and slid to the ground, crying. Casual coffees were one thing, but this had turned into a full-blown relationship. I was terrified of visiting Emma's grave again in case she rose from the dead to scold me. Earlier this year, Ruth had problems with her terrible landlord, so I suggested she stay with me. Just temporarily. And for a few months, I left the past in the rearview mirror. We even went on a few picnics, although I never made Ruth a tuna sandwich. Things changed when she asked how we should spend Valentine's Day. The first anniversary of Emma's accident. Let me tell you, that guilt came back strong. The dirt around Emma's headstone was still fresh. What kind of husband jumps into another relationship so fast? In the end, I decided I needed to move on sooner or later, so I made a plan: visit Emma on Valentine's Day morning, then spend the afternoon with Ruth. I just needed to share the news ahead of time rather than on her death anniversary. So, I pulled out all the stops for a perfect picnic. Despite the gloomy weather. On the grassy knoll, I'd barely finished unscrewing the coffee flask when the tears came. I confessed everything about my new relationship, about how I'd never meant to move on so fast, and how deeply, deeply sorry I was. Emma's grave took the news surprisingly well. In all seriousness, deep down I knew she would have wanted me to find happiness. The only thing left to do was finish a quick side mission: visit Christian Mary's grave. He deserved to know the new guy in Ruth's life thought the world of her. Past the tree, I checked the headstone she usually stood over. A married couple were buried there, the Presleys. I walked around, going in circles, widening my search each time. No Christian. At the groundskeeper's shack, I asked Harry about his grave. Harry checked the notes and then walked me past the hill through an alley of trees. Christian's resting place was further along than I'd ever seen Ruth go. Strange. But not as strange as what I found next. According to the inscription, he died on the 6th of October. 2 months after my blanket blew onto Ruth's face. Which would have meant she'd been hanging around the grave before he even passed away. At dinner, I casually asked her, "Hey, so, I know this isn't an easy topic, but, where's Christian buried?" She froze, a forkful of casserole halfway to her mouth. Why? Well, Valentine's Day is the anniversary of Emma's accident, so I was gonna stop by. I thought maybe I'd pay my respects to Christian too. Keeping my voice casual, I added, "He's on the far side of the tree, right? Just down the hill." "He's further down." But then I didn't like getting too close. Standing over his grave made me feel sick, okay? I understand. I waited a second. By the way, when did he pass? March? April? Why are you questioning me? I'm in. Don't you realize how hard this is for me? With that, she carried her plate and glass into the kitchen. After Ruth went to bed, I looked up Christian Mary online and found an article about a strange sailing accident. The body of Mr. Mary, 34, was found near a jetty off the coast. Ruth Mary said her husband fell into the water while on deck to check a fishing line. The date? August 6th. 2 months after our sweet meeting. Something didn't add up. But over the next few days, anytime I brought it up with Ruth, the tears came immediately, and then she'd ask me to hold her while she cried, or accuse me of questioning her. How was I supposed to get any answers? Ruth still visited the graveyard, so the next time she set off I secretly followed her, wearing a trench coat and sunglasses like some bad detective. I expected her to head straight for the hill, but instead, she went around the valley and past a lake. In a completely different section, she sat alone on a wooden bench. I felt like a terrible person. Maybe visiting the actual grave really was too painful for her. As I turned to leave, a man with a scruffy beard sat beside her for a chat. Now and then, they touched each other's arms or threw their heads back laughing. Obviously, they knew each other well. After 20 minutes, they both stood up, and then they shared a weird, awkward kiss. It looked unplanned, judging by how neither of them seemed to know what to do with their hands afterward. Part of me wanted to run up for a big, dramatic confrontation, but there was too much racing through my mind. I slipped away instead. What did this mean? Did she lose interest in me? Was that why she never talked about Christian? Because this other guy was a better listener? As strange as this sounds, a huge wave of relief washed over me. It felt like I deserved to be betrayed for turning my back on Emma so soon. Back home, Ruth came through the door and kissed me like that graveyard moment had never even happened. In the end, I decided the whole mess could wait. Valentine's Day was almost here, which meant I had enough guilt to deal with already. Maybe explaining the whole thing to Emma would help me sort out my own mind. On the morning of the big day, I wrapped 2 tuna sandwiches and slipped them into a basket, along with a thermos of coffee and some iced buns. I got halfway out the door when Ruth asked me to go upstairs. She said there was a giant spider in the tub. The bathroom was completely empty. Must have scurried off, she said when I came back down. Then she smiled and handed me my keys. At the graveyard, my heart felt like it cracked in half before I even laid out the blanket. I confessed everything to Emma, how I'd met another woman, how that woman met another man, and how the whole mess felt like punishment for moving on too fast. Getting all that off my chest made me feel 50 pounds lighter. I wiped away the tears and finished setting up the picnic. Then, like always, I offered Emma's headstone the first bite of a tuna sandwich. Since she wasn't hungry, I helped myself. But that first bite seemed wrong. Not the taste, but the feeling. My chest tightened. I reminded myself how to breathe. I went to wipe away sweat, but my arms felt so heavy. I grabbed the thermos, and by then my hand was shaking. It was like I could only pull in air through a straw. I thumped my chest, gasped for breath, and finally spit bread all over Emma's grave. Part of me was screaming, "You're in real trouble," but an even louder part was screaming, "You just disgraced your wife's grave, you coward." I remember rolling onto my back and seeing her standing there. Ruth. I clawed at the air above my chest, begging for help, and when that didn't work, I gestured at my throat. Then I noticed the rest of my sandwich in her hand. Without warning she climbed on top of me and forced more tuna into my mouth. The taste of mayo and pickle made me gag even worse. I had to stop her. I bit down on her fingers until she ripped her hand away. She didn't scream or shout, she just narrowed her eyes at me. Next thing I knew, she clamped my nose shut. In her free hand, she had a clump of tuna, ready for the moment my mouth opened again. "You're not the first, you know," she said, her voice cold. "But you were the sweetest. The tuna thing. That really touched me. Most men can't love dead women like you do." Dead woman. I craned my neck back and looked straight up. Emma's grave was only a few feet above my head. I bucked my hips. Ruth flew forward, slamming her forehead straight into Emma's tombstone with a dull thud. A trail of blood trickled down right above the point where it said, "Beloved wife," then Ruth rolled onto her side, groaning. My whole body wouldn't stop shaking. I felt like I was drowning as I rolled down the hill, then crawled right through a funeral procession. A group of mourners, each dressed in black, screamed in shock. A priest threatened to have me taken away until he saw the shade of blue my face had turned. The ambulance ride was a blur. My first clear memory, waking up with an 4 in my arm. The nurses said the first thing I asked was if they thought Emma might ever forgive me. A blood test revealed that my tuna sandwich had been laced with something deadly. Inside the picnic basket, they found an envelope addressed to Emma in my handwriting. In it, I confessed how no woman could ever replace her, so I was supposedly ending my own life with a poisoned picnic to honor her memory. The man Ruth met on the bench, Gavin, said she told him her most recent boyfriend had taken his own life, and she went there to visit my resting place. Said they bonded over their mutual grief. Ruth is denying all of this, of course. Says I'm imagining things. As far as I can tell, she's some kind of black widow who has an obsession with grieving husbands. The police are still trying to figure out the truth. The second I got out of the hospital, I visited Emma's grave, only to discover that somebody had left a tuna sandwich beneath the headstone. I think I'm done with romance for a while. They say no one makes it to the end. But you did. Like, subscribe. And don't turn around.